Do you ever feel like you're juggling a million versions of yourself and still dropping the ball? Like you're switching hats all day, professional, partner, parent, friend, and no one really sees what it takes to just be you? Yeah, me too. Welcome to Hat Rack with Hannah. I'm Hannah, therapist, entrepreneur, author, podcast host, and also a mom, partner, daughter, friend, basically a professional hat wearer. I created this space where you don't have to minimize what you're carrying or rush past it. Because the truth is, you can have big dreams and feel overwhelmed by the roles it takes to hold them. Both get to exist. Here we slow it down, call it what it is, take some hats off, and figure out what actually belongs in your rack. So take a deep breath. You can set something down here, and let's get into it. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our last episode of the month of May. I'm Hannah, your host for Hat Rack with Hannah, and we are going to talk about behind the month and host reflections today. We also are going to bring in some responses that we got from social media and kind of just tie our entire theme of the month together with a bow. We're also going to talk about grace because I feel like it's really needed given all of our content this month. And then we are going to wrap up with some reflection questions that I hope y'all can really think through. So I'm really excited. First and foremost, I'm just so pumped that this has been something that we've been getting really great feedback on. When I decided to do this, I did not think that this would go so well, and that's really, really exciting. So I've been loving hearing from y'all. I've been loving seeing your reviews, getting DMs. It's been really, really fun. And also the hat rack submissions. Like I said last week, I'm still just like floored by how many people are submitting them. And I'm just really, really excited about it. So what did our month really teach us? We really, with our intro episode, Mother's Day, our interview with Sabrina, and then our hat rack episode really focused on all the hats we wear, which is what we do here, right? So I'm going to provide you 3 highlights from this month. My first highlight is really naming the weight of holding multiple roles. I feel like that really happened, and we opened conversations around what it feels like to constantly shift between roles and the emotional load that comes with trying to show up fully in all of them. A huge highlight was realizing how many people resonated with this and who emotionally split between responsibilities. The second highlight was honest conversations around emotional labor and expectations. From the Mother's Day episode to community submissions, one of the strongest themes was the pressure many people carry quietly, keeping everything moving, managing emotions, their own and others, trying to meet expectations while stretched really thin. This month created space to normalize that overwhelm instead of just judging it. The third highlight is community vulnerability and shared experience. So the Hat Rack submissions and conversations this month reminded us how powerful it was when people feel safe enough to say things like, "Me too. I thought I was the only one. I've been carrying this silently." I remember a comment that was posted on social to one of our videos saying, "I'm just so grateful that this is language and education that I can put towards the feelings I've been feeling for most of my life." And for me, that just brings me such joy that someone was able to feel that. And it just really hits on this third highlight of the community vulnerability and how we all share these things, but we just don't talk about it. So I was really excited about that. Some of my reflections this month, what really surprised me was how people incorporated these things outside of the episode. So I got a lot of messages around Mother's Day and people being like, "Hey, I switched my entire Mother's Day weekend around." There was a really great example of somebody doing a camp dad. So mom could go, I think it was like mom went and did like a day for herself and they did a camp dad. Adorable. We love that. And then there was one submission where someone said they spent the whole day with their family and they all turned off their phones. And that's what really fueled that mom. And they like did something in there. I'm envisioning this, I'm not sure, but it seems like they live in a really tight-knit community because they did some kind of like community Mother's Day thing in their living area where they got to really like lean in on their village. like amazing. So that was awesome. And then what felt really emotionally heavy was I got a lot of feedback about how hard it was to challenge these norms, specifically when Sabrina said, I can't, I won't statement and what I won't meant to viewers. We got a lot of comments around like, ouch, that seems really harsh and that seems so much harder to say, but it's not inaccurate. And if I look at things through that lens, then maybe I just shouldn't be doing a lot of these things and maybe that will help me set boundaries. I also got a lot of feedback that some communities and cultures really like to gather and that I was taking more of an individualistic approach and not that's not always the case for everyone. And I totally hear that. And I think depending on your cultural beliefs or your community, it's a great thing to be collective and to really lean in there. It's also a privilege and not often people can do that. And I think also being in the individualistic mindset is also a privilege. So it's holding both and figuring out how you can navigate it as long as you're serving yourself first. And again, that's a privilege in itself as well. So that was just like a harder feedback response. And I went back and forth with someone on it, and it was really awesome. We had a really great conversation around it. And I think it's just normalizing really hard challenges in cultures and societal things where it's like, I have to, but like you really actually don't. And breaking that down is kind of what that conversation looked like. So that was really fun. I noticed a lot of growth edges for myself this month. One of the things I've been dying to share is, I'm a therapist first, not first, but I'm a therapist. And I'm so used to sitting in the chair that sharing my experience is something that's very different for me. It's a different hat that I'm trying on. So when I'm giving examples about my life and incorporating them into like the psychoeducation piece, it's been challenging because in, therapist school, it's like, don't do that. We can't relate that much. And to me, I don't really believe in that. I don't do it often with my clients, but there are definitely therapeutic moments where it's beneficial for me to share my experience, to have my clients understand that they're not alone and other people feel like this and you are not an alien. And so I do normalize and validate a lot with that. But this is just so much different because it's really me out here, right? So that's been a really interesting growth edge this month. And then also, like I said in my kind of intro, a lot of this is work that I'm working on too. This is hard stuff. Last week, I totally crashed and burned, just like didn't follow my boundaries and was working way too late and then wasn't with my daughter. And so felt that huge split, right? And had to just stop and realign my life and reset my boundaries and work on my nose. And so it's important that y'all know when I'm talking through these things, like it's not just from a therapist perspective being like, try this. I'm working on it too. This is human experience. And it's really important to know that we are doing this all together. Another piece of today is highlighting some social media stuff. I've been kind of giving little examples here and there. But one question that I asked on my social media this week was, what role drains you the most? And what we got was being a teacher, girl, yes, especially before summer. Thank you for what you do. We got 13 people who said work. Someone said solopreneuring. Another said the not sleeping mommy role. Hear that. Another person said being a new mom while stuck living with emotionally stunted family. Very difficult. Very difficult. And then another said friends who are not supporting and judging me. Ouch. So those are all very draining roles. And it's hard because in our society, right? Like we have our capitalistic society, we have to work, right? And we are also momming. And we also have relationships with friends, right? So my big question back to all of you when it comes to what roles drain you most is how can you shift these draining roles into things that serve you? I know it's a really hard question, but really evaluate what shifts you can make. For example, work is work. Some people are all about their work, and we're taught that work is our identity. It's not. It's a piece of what we do. And it doesn't have to be the accomplishment you hold, and it doesn't have to be your main thing that, defines who you are. So with work, how can I leave work at work? How can I go do my work, maybe even like engage with coworkers differently in a way that feels good to you, or take that lunch break that feels really good, do your yoga workout at lunch, or skip your lunch, eat a snack still, let's feed ourselves. But so you can get home early that day, or planning some PTO days, like really figure out what you can do to feel better about being at work, or accepting work is work and that's what it is. And I'm going to make the best of it by doing things that I need for me. A big thing too that I would suggest is with all of these roles that drain you is implementing micro breaks. So when we are feeling really drained by a specific role, take a minute, 30 seconds, even 5 minutes if we can, to really just like in the middle of your day or whenever the draining feels like, the feeling. Okay. Taking a deep breath. I'm taking a sip of tea. I'm going to take 5 minutes, call my sister, taking the minutes to just give yourself that oomph to really get through the draining pieces of your role that's holding you. The other hard question I want to ask is, if it's not serving you, why are we doing it? There's usually reasons, right? Usually laundry lists, but also identifying like, do we change roles? Do we change jobs? When it comes to not sleeping mommy role, right? Can our partner take a shift, or can we take a nap when kiddo is napping that day? When you're stuck living with difficult family, can we get out of the house more? Or can we have some hard, vulnerable conversations with them to see if they can learn some of the concepts that we want our children to learn and incorporate? And when it comes to friends not judging us, we talked about this a lot last week with one of our viewers' questions. But how can we evaluate where we can set boundaries and where we can speak up for ourselves? So just figure out the shifts. And if we can't make huge shifts like changing jobs, right? Where can I get supports? Who can I ask to let me have that micro break? Or can I just take a micro break? Or who can support me? So just really evaluate those things. And thank you so much for participating on social. I love when that happens, and I'll be posting a lot more just to get your feedback and also incorporate it into more episodes in the future. So please be doing that. So to thread everything together of the last month, every conversation this month was the tension between capacity and expectation. As I look back, what stands out most isn't just individual conversations, it's the pattern underneath all of them. Across the Mother's Day episode, the interview, the hat rack submission, and even the intro episode, there was a consistent theme of people trying to hold so much at once. Multiple roles, expectations, experiences, hats. And underneath that was this quiet pressure so many of us carry. The pressure is still to do it all, to be present, to perform, to care for everyone else and everything else, all while trying not to lose ourselves in the process. So it reminded us a lot that people aren't failing, we're just split. The split will be our next month's content, and I'm very excited to get more into it. The split is a concept that I coined that kind of gives language to this experience that we all feel and that we've started to talk about. So more in that coming. But maybe the work isn't becoming someone who can hold everything, especially perfectly. But I think the work is really learning how to move through these roles with more awareness and support and grace. So grace is really hard. And honestly, it's something I struggle so much with because I'm way quicker to judge myself than literally anyone else. Right? We weren't taught grace. We weren't taught give yourself a break. We were taught push the envelope, pull your big girl pants on. And so I want to talk a little bit about grace to wrap up our month. Separating hard from failure. Just because something feels hard doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. But we're going to try shifts like I'm failing to I'm caring a lot right now. Oof, that's a hard one for me. I should handle this better. This makes sense given my capacity today. So when we're reframing these, narratives and self-talk. I really want you to think of, okay, this is my negative narrative, my negative brain, the one that's saying I'm failing and I should handle this better. And this is the brain space I really want to be in, the brain space that gives me grace, the I'm caring a lot right now. This makes sense given my capacity today. So when you are hearing this negative narrative, I want you to filter through it with a grace filter and try and implement more graceful statements to yourself. Along with this, we're going to check expectations against your actual capacity. So asking ourselves, what do I realistically have the energy for today? I love when I get into the office and I feel real ambitious and I have like 3 to-do lists and I'm like, I can do all of this, but I have 6 clients. As a therapist, when you have 6 clients, what that means is you have like an hour of like direct attention in with a client. So there's no way in the whole world that I am going to be doing that to-do list. If I have an admin hour, maybe I can get some of it done, but not all of it. And so for me, that's like realistically having the energy for. It's not even the energy for, it's planning my pockets of time where I can do those admin things. So instead of asking myself, what do I realistically have the energy for today? I'm going to look at my calendar and be like, okay, I have 6 clients. I have 1 admin hour. Here's what I can realistically do in that 1 admin hour versus assuming 7 clients. I have 3 to-do lists. I'm going to do it all. Because what happens then is I'm going to break my boundary. I'm going to stay at work late or get there early. And I'm going to miss time with my daughter and my husband. And then a few days later, I'm going to start to feel really heavy and gross. And then a few days later, I'm going to be really upset. That's just how I work. But this filter is going to help us align our expectations for what we are realistically doing. Another question I want you to ask yourself, am I expecting myself to function like I'm fully rested, regulated, and unsupported? So the mom who is not sleeping well, why am I expecting myself to get all these things done today if I had 3 hours of sleep? Don't. That's not fair to you. That's not okay. Instead, we're going to wake up. Okay, I had 3 hours of sleep last night. What can I take off my plate today? What can I realistically do with my function levels? Grace often starts with an honest assessment, not lowering your standards forever, just adjusting them for the moment that you're in. So expectations against your actual capacity and measuring that. Stop measuring your worth by productivity. I have this conversation probably every day of the week, most weeks. Being productive is not the same as being valuable. We are taught you have to remain productive. That's not true. And there are different levels of productivity even. Like, am I productive when I am with my child? I guess not, right? But yes, I am. I'm parenting. That's a very productive role. But we often are thinking that's not productive because it's not getting the things done. And it's honestly a very American concept, and we don't always have to be productive. So being productive is not the same thing as being valuable. You are still worthy on slower days, emotional days, unfinished days, survival mode days. So just something to remember. And don't measure yourself by your productivity levels. Practice good enough moments. Okay, this is probably one that I struggle with the most. Not every task needs your maximum output. So you can ask yourself, does this need perfection or completion? Where can I soften instead of overperforming? Giving yourself grace sometimes means allowing done to be enough. Let's hold that for a second. Giving yourself grace sometimes means allowing done to be enough. That's a really hard concept, especially if you're a perfectionist or especially if there's the right or if you believe there's a right or wrong way to complete a task. I often do. But if the dishes are done, the dishes are done. If they're not all rinsed, it doesn't really matter, right? Again, I think it does, but it doesn't. So finding grace and not having to complete everything to perfection, but just complete it some days. And that's enough and that's okay. Creating transition moments. So a lot of overwhelm comes from when we're carrying one role into the next. So some small reset help and some tips going role to role, wearing hat to hat. Take some deep breaths before walking inside. So, like, I've given this example when I switch roles from work to home, but like before I get out of my car, take a few deep breaths, open the car door, close the car door. I'm ready to transition into to go inside for work or to go inside to be home. Take a short walk between tasks. Like if you can walk and work, or just walk to a task, or take a minute out of your day to go do that, you should do it. Even between clients, you'll always see therapists in the bathroom at like the 50 mark, 50 to the hour mark, because that's when we just get up to move our bodies and go to the bathroom. Most of us don't even have to go to the bathroom. We just need to like walk and function for a minute and like decompress from our last client. Changing clothes after work. So my family does this often. It honestly started with COVID and we just kept it going. But like when we get home, our work clothes come off and our PJs go on. It's just a good way to transition and it feels good. My daughter is pretty funny. She just walks in the house, strips into her diaper, and we're here for it. 5 quiet minutes in the car. So you go home, park your car, sit there for 5 minutes, sometimes listen to a song, put your phone down, and then transition inside. Or doing that when you get to work. When I've had a hard drop off at daycare, or I come out of a really hard meeting or a hard session, I'll take 5 minutes before I move into the next thing. Another way that we can reset is music, stretching, grounding. Take a minute to listen to a song between things. Take a minute to stretch your body, ground yourself into the space. Grace grows when your nervous system has time to shift. So when you're constantly moving, we're way less graceful with ourselves. So take the minute. Another approach to grace, talk to yourself like someone you love. Oftentimes when I talk with clients about this, I reframe it and I ask, would you let a friend talk to themselves that way? 9 times out of 10, they say no. So when you notice that internal voice, for example, saying like you're failing at everything, if your friend said that, what would you say? No, you're not. Give yourself grace. What did you do well today, right? So use that filter of a best friend instead of that critique filter that you have. So try, you're doing the best with a lot. You don't have to carry this perfectly. It's okay to need support. We're just reframing. We're shifting the narrative a little bit, and we're shifting that inner voice. Allowing support before burnout. Another tip for grace. Grace is not just emotional, it's practical. And support can look like asking for help, delegating, rescheduling, resting before you fully crash, saying no without over explaining. These can be really hard because oftentimes when we are in a space where we need support, we don't want to ask for it. Great example. When I was I told y'all last week, I was really pressing my boundaries and then I kind of realized it throughout the week, right? And then I had to ask my partner for support to work a few extra hours on a day I normally don't. I hated that. And it's going to set me up for the week and it's going to make the entire difference. So it was really important that I did that, even though it makes me just not love it. And resting before you fully crash is really important too. It's a hard one, but these supports are really important. Finally, our last tip for giving yourself grace, normalize just being a human. You'll forget things. You're gonna get overwhelmed. You're gonna need breaks. You're gonna have emotional reactions. You're not gonna balance everything perfectly, especially as business owners and parents and people holding multiple roles. These things are not weaknesses. This is just being a person. But oftentimes we don't allot ourselves these things, like taking breaks or when getting upset for ourselves for having emotions. So we really got to normalize this. and reframe these things. Like when you get upset over something and your kid sees it, take the deep breath and reset. Go take the nap or go restore after work. Do the things that you need to do as a human. Like our society was not built how we pictured humans to interact and work. There are many other cultures who take breaks because it's important and we know it's what's best for our beings as humans, but we don't as Americans, and we need to. So, last little piece about grace. When you're feeling overwhelmed, I want you to ask yourself these few questions to kind of go through the filter we were talking about earlier. What do I need right now? Not ideally, but realistically. What can wait? What am I expecting from myself today? What would gentle look like here? And am I responding from pressure or from care? Let me know how these questions go. And I'll be eager to hear what everyone thinks. But giving yourself grace is not letting yourself off the hook. It's recognizing that compassion creates more sustainability than constant self-pressure. Going back to our episodes this month, just want to give 3 grounded anchors. So one mind shift that we have is how can we give ourselves grace in asking those questions? One behavior shift we have is what small action can you change in your life to serve you and prioritize you? And then a self question that you can ask is when I feel this again, I will ask myself what? So when I feel this overwhelm, when I feel this pressure between roles or hats, I will ask myself what? Not to fix everything, just to interrupt this autopilot mode that we usually live in. So I want to give you permission to release. This is an emotional exhale. You don't have to perfectly integrate the month. You don't have to carry every insight that we just gave you. Growth is non-linear and cumulative, not immediate, and it's okay if something only lands later. Integration is not something you complete, it's something you return to. So in closing, what part of this month still feels like it's settling in for you? I'm going to post this on Instagram as a question, and I can't wait to hear your feedback and thoughts on it. And I'm really excited for next month to talk about the split. We have a great interview already done for next month as well, which will be really fun. And then really work through those grace filters. I'm very eager to hear how it goes. I really want to appreciate and take a minute to be grateful for you listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, this entire project, I'm just so grateful that people are really responsive and people are really, this is hitting for a lot of people and I love it. So thank you so, so much. Please go like our socials, review the pod, share the pod, get your friends and neighbors to listen. But also make sure that you're really interactive on our social media polls and submit your hat rack questions. We'll be filming more hat rack questions soon, and I'd love to get your feedback. So thank you so much, and let's be really graceful this month.